I'm not sure what just happened there. 8b1. Actually, in this Gemara, that's 8b2. Sorry. Right?
8b1.
Oh, 8b1. Sorry, 8b1. And the Gemara said, the pasuk says, so 6 days you should work. On the 7th you should rest. So Rabbi Akiva says the Gemara. Rabbi Akiva says, right? What's it talking about? With that you have to stop from plowing and planting, and gathering. When is a time when you're not allowed to plant and you're not allowed to gather? Shemitah. So he learns that's going on the Shemitah year. Rabbi Kiva says, "Eno tzarich lomar charish hashviit u'katzir hashviit." You don't have to say that. We already have a pasuk that says that you're not allowed to do this on the 7th year. Correct? So therefore, you need an extra pasuk to tell you that you have to abstain from planting and from plowing.
Maybe for the 50th year.
What?
Maybe for the 50th year.
That's not what Rabbi Akiva says.
I'm just asking.
You're asking, why doesn't Rabbi Akiva say that?
No, if you already knew it about the 7th year and all the 7th years, and you still have the statement, it's referring to something else. The something else might be the Jubilee.
So I think that would not work with the first part of the pasuk. So let's just see 1 second. We'll come to the second opinion, and then we'll come back to your question, okay? And you'll tell me if it answers it. So Rabbi Akiva says it can't be talking about Shvi'it because it's in Shemitah, and I already know that. So what's it coming to tell you? Ela afilu charisha erev Shvi'it. Even if you plowed, even if we're talking about plowing before Shemitah, shenichnas Shvi'it. So let's say right before Shemitah, I decide I'm going to plow. But the reason why I'm plowing is to benefit the field for the 7th year. So that is a direct charish, not in the 7th year, but for the 7th year. So the chidush is, I already told you can't plow in the 7th year. This is to come to tell you a chidush of a different kind of plowing that will affect the 7th year. That's the first answer.
You can't benefit from the 7th year.
You can't.
The 6th.
You can't benefit. The charisha can't benefit the 7th year.
What
Okay.
about if you harvest one day into the 8th year?
1 minute, says the Gemara, exactly that. V'katzir shel shvi'it sheyotzeh l'shmotzeh shvi'it. So what does it mean you can't harvest? Already told me you can't harvest during the 7th year, but it's talking about over here is when you're harvesting in the 8th year, the produce of the 7th year. What would be that idea of harvesting? So you can't have a harvest now? The point is, if you had something that had a significant amount of growth during the Shemitah year, then harvesting it afterwards would be harvesting the plants, the fruits of Shvi'it. The amount of growth that we give is 1/3. So the katzir sheshvi'it sheyotzeh l'motzeh shvi'it. So in that case, Rabbi Akiva learns that it says charishu katzir. I already know that halacha with regards to Shemitah. So I gave you one chidush in a charish that you would not have known about Shvi'it, and I gave you one chidush about a katzir that you would not have known about the 8th year coming off of the 7th year. Okay? Rabbi Yishmael Omer. However, Rabbi Yishmael learns this same pasuk not to refer to Shemitah, but rather to refer to Shabbat. Because remember, how does it start off? 6 days do you work, and on the 7th day, Tishbot, are you going to rest? Rabbi Yishmael Omer, it's talking about Shabbat. But what do you mean? Why would you need to tell it to me about Shabbat? My answer is, it's coming to tell you a specific halacha. Ma charish reshut. The same way charish is only reshut. It's only on a type of plowing that's voluntary, because there's no mitzvah ever associated with plowing. There's no mitzvah that we would ever tell you to plow, right? So ma charish reshut, af katzir reshut. So therefore, also the only type of cutting or harvesting is a kind of harvesting which is up to you, which is optional, because there's no mitzvah ever associated with plowing. So therefore, what we're referring to over here is a optional harvesting. Yatzak katzir ha'omer shu mitzvah. We would exclude from here katzir ha'omer, which is a mitzvah. In other words, the omer is a korban that you bring from the barley. You have to bring that korban. You have to harvest it and then bring it the next day. So if the day before the korban ha'omer, right, would turn out on Shabbat, so you would still harvest even on Shabbat because of this teaching, macharish reshut, also katzir reshut. But a katzir harvesting, which is not optional, that was never mentioned with regard to Shabbat. Amaleh, so that's how Rabbi Ishmael learns. Amaleh Rabbanan Rava. So there was a certain rabbi that asked Rava, he asked Rava the question that we saw before in Rava is now posed on this Braita. So we've had this already a couple of times, that there's two different opinions about when a certain phrase was said. So we know Rava had this comment, but rolling off of which Braita, which Mishnah did Rava make that comment, okay? The certain rabbi asked Rava, how do you know that charisha, that plowing is voluntary, is optional? Maybe we know that there's a harvesting that's a mitzvah. What's harvesting is a mitzvah? As an example, the harvesting of the Omer. In order to have a harvest, you have to have something grow. In order for it to grow, what do you have to have? You have to have it plowed. So maybe this plowing is referring to the plowing that the guy did the year of the Omer. He's now planting the fruit, the barley that's going to be used for the Omer. So then the planting is also, the plowing is also a plowing of a mitzvah. Still Torah said, Tishbot, you're not allowed to do so. So your whole learning is based on the fact that plowing is optional. Maybe it was the plowing of the Omer, which is a mitzvah, because that's how you're going to be able to make the Omer. Amalei, Rava said to him exactly what Rava said in our teaching with regards to our learning. Amalei, Rava said, Kivan nimatzach harush eno choresh. If I found an area that was already plowed, somebody plowed it for whatever reason, but there's already a plowed area, and then I would plant in that area to be able to have the Omer. So there, lav mitzvah, there would be no mitzvah to go and plow again. The mitzvah is not to plow, the mitzvah is to cut Omer. Now you're going to tell me, what do you mean? But you have to plow in order to do it. That's true. But what if I found an area that was already plowed? Would there be a mitzvah for me to go and plow again for the sake of the Omer? No. So it's a happens to be thing on the way to a mitzvah, not a mitzvah itself. So therefore, since the mitzvah could be accomplished without going through that step, also here, even now that you're doing it for that step, it's not a mitzvah. Exactly the same like we said earlier with regards to the Mishnah, where if you would not have to hit him, it would not be a mitzvah because he got it anyway. Right. And now the Gemara is going to exactly go on with that same hemshech like we had the first time. Etbe Ravina es Rava Yatzahav. The Mishnah says a father who hits his son is not in the mitzvah of galut. And the agent of bedin that administers all the makot. What's the reason? Let's say, Rava, you say that if you could do it without, then even if you did it with, it's not a mitzvah, right? Well, I could say the same exact logic here to you. Since the child could have learned it without, therefore then, even if you hit him to do the mitzvah, it's still not a mitzvah. The Gemara answers the Gemara like we already saw. Even if the kid could have learned without the discipline, there's still a mitzvah to discipline the child. Give him that discipline and he will guide you. So therefore, since there's a mitzvah, even if the child is doing the right thing, still to discipline him, because as we said earlier, it's important for the child to have both love for the mitzvah and of Hashem, and also a reverence, a fear of God. So therefore that discipline is still necessary, so it's still a mitzvah. Hadar Amar Rava, like we saw already before as well, Rava then said, Lav milti dami. That I said, it's wrong, it's incorrect. Why? Kitzira dumya da charisha. The kitzira, the cutting, is compared to the charisha, to the plowing. Ma charisha matzach harusha nechoresh. Just like charisha, when it comes to plowing the field. If I found something that was plowed already, would I have to plow again? I would not have to do so. Av kitzira nami. So too, kitzira, if I found something that was cut, matzah katsur and a kotzer. If I found something that was cut already, so in other words, if I found cut barley from the day before, I could use it. The Yisal Kedaitach mitzvah, and if you want to say it's a mitzvah, matzah katsur eno kotzer. If you want to say that we're talking about for the Omer, which is a mitzvah, right? If that's how you want to learn it, The matzah katzur ve'eno kotzer is the halacha that if you found something that's cut, that you would not need to cut again. Mitzvah lektzor lavi. It's a mitzvah to cut and to bring the grain, even if you found grain that was available. So therefore, it's impossible to say this idea. Ma charisha. We can't learn this lesson of charisha because the two are fundamentally different. Let's go return now for a second to Nathan's question. Nathan asked earlier, so maybe why does Rabbi Akiva and the second opinion, Rabbi Ishmael, why are they learning it for either for Shabbat or for the 7th year? Why don't they learn it for Yovel? I think the answer is because it says Sheshet Yamim Ta'avod, 6 days you should work. Bayom HaShvi'i Tishbot, on the 7th day you should rest. So Rabbi Ishmael learned it 7 days literally. Rabbi Akiva learned it for 6 years, right? Literally, and the 7th is Shemitah, but the 50th that wouldn't apply. So you could either learn it for days or for years, but you couldn't learn it for a random year because you have the beginning, the introduction to the pasuk. Okay, let's.
And you can't break the 6 and 1 from the comment.
It's the same pasuk. Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
What
The
about
Mishnah.
the breaking down of plowing and reaping? Is each one have its own benefit or not? Like
What do you mean?
like it's a mitzvah to plow, and you could say, but you can get it somewhere else, so therefore it's not obligatory, it's not necessary. But then you can reap it from someone else.
I don't understand.
The mitzvah
Say it one more time.
to reap.
Plowing,
Yeah.
you can get someone else's plowed product to use.
Yes.
Right. So
Okay.
therefore, it's not a mitzvah because it's not. You can get it in other ways.
Yes.
And reaping, you can also get it in other ways, or is that like you can reap someone else's plowed?
So let's just hold up these the two parts of Rava together.
Right.
The first time what we were saying is that they're fundamentally different. Reaping is not a mitzvah,
Right.
ever,
Right.
and plowing is a mitzvah because you have to do it again.
Right.
Then the Gemara, the second opinion of Rava is no. There are times when plowing could be a mitzvah, but it's not the same as the harvesting. Why? Because harvesting is always a mitzvah. Reaping could be a mitzvah, it could not be a mitzvah. But the second opinion holds that if you did not find something plowed, it would be a mitzvah to plow. It would be a mitzvah to plow.
Right.
The first opinion holds that if there's a possibility to have it without it, so that even when you do it, it's still not a mitzvah. Rava in the second opinion is saying not like that, but he's still saying that the two things are different fundamentally one from the other, because one is always going to be a mitzvah, even if you found it cut, you would still need to cut again.
Right.
That's the difference between the two opinions of Rava.
Can I
Okay?
try one more time?
Yes?
6 days shall you work, and 7th day you shall not work. It works for every set of 7. You know you can't work on Shabbat ever, and you know you can't work during Shemitah ever. So now you have to learn something new. So in the same way you can't work in the 7th year, you also shouldn't work in the 50th year in a group of 7.
So the Gemara didn't like the fact that it says 6 and 7. 6 you should work, 7 you should not work, becharish bekatzir. So it means that the charish and katzir are in the 7th. So what was the answer of 7-8? Is here's a way of giving me the isur of 7, but not in the 7th year.
Right. Which is
Because it
before-
went into the next
before
one.
and just before.
It's just before or just after, exactly. Yeah. And you wouldn't need to tell me the Yovel, because there's also a teaching that you can't have it on Yovel. So Yovel is the same as Shemitah. What we're trying to get around is that we already know that, so come up with a way, of not having it that way. It's interesting,
And
Rebbe.
they don't mention Motzei Yovel in this comment because it's
Because that would not be 6 and 7.
right
That would be
8.
post. Yeah, exactly. That would be 9. Motzei Yovel.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Fine. Let's carry on. Says the Mishnah, Ha'av goleh al yidei haben, ve'haben goleh al yidei ha'av. The father can go to galut for murdering his son. Obviously, what we're talking about is, as we always talk about with regards to galut, when it's done b'shogeg. Haben goleh aide'av, the son is also able to go into galut for the murder of his father. Hakol golim al yidei Israel. Everyone is allowed to. Everyone will go into galut for the killing of Israel. We'll have to see already what the chidush is in the Gemara. Okay, Israel golin al yidehem, and the Yisraelim also. Anyone who's Israel will be goleh for killing the others of Israel. Chutz.
I thought a son is never allowed to harm a father.
He's not.
He can't.
Shogeg.
So maybe it's so serious it can't be in the Goldilocks shogeg.
But again, remember, it's shogeg. So in other words, the fact that what you would have to do is make it less shogeg or more shogeg. So here it's his father. Unless what you're saying is, since he has to be so careful even to give him a bruise, so it can't be. But again, in the shogeg world, the whole thing was by accident. But let's see. We'll come to it in just a bit. Gemara says, so Yisrael gets galut for killing Yisrael.
But not a Levi or
V'Yisrael golin al yidehen. And again, we'll have to see why would that be the case. Chutz miger toshav, except for a ger toshav. Okay. Now we have to see exactly what is a ger toshav. There are two different types of gerim. Okay. There's a ger which is called a ger tzedek, and there's a ger which is called a ger toshav. And we'll see exactly what the difference is between them. Right. When one is a higher level of ger than the other. A ger tzedek is a person who's a full convert.
Ger tzedek.
Ger tzedek. A ger toshav is someone who decides that he wants to convert in order to live with you. What's that referring to? In general, there were laws that prohibited the Jewish people from having the people that were there in Israel living amongst them, because they didn't want them to influence them. So you want to have a ger toshav, he wants to live with you. So what does he need to accept on himself? Effectively, he needs to accept on himself 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach, and to be under the auspices of the Beit Din with regards to the laws. Okay?
Why is that person a ger though? What is he converting to?
Ger just literally means who lives with. It has become a euphemism for a convert, right? But ger toshav means someone who lives amongst you. Like Avraham Avinu said to the Bnei Chet, he said, ger v'toshav anochi imachem. I am a sojourner and a resident along with you. He was never saying he was converting to Chetism. Yeah, okay.
Ger doesn't mean stranger.
Again, for the same reason. The word ger means to live. When you're referring to someone coming to live with you, what is the person if we're talking about him coming to live with us? He was a stranger, okay? So it has all these different interpretations, but the root of the word literally means to live with. Right? Right? Vayagor sham, exactly. Lagur banu. Chutz mi ger toshav. So what happens if a person inadvertently kills a ger toshav? So the halacha would be that there's no galut. V'ger toshav eno goleh ela al yidei ger toshav. And a ger toshav would also not be in the mitzvah of galut unless he kills another ger toshav, which is a huge chidush. Because why would you think that the ger toshav has any exile at all? He has 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach. This is not one of them. So we'll already see this idea what the Mishnah is communicating.
He accepts the rule of living under Beit Din.
Even if that's the case, but he would accept the rule of living not as a full Jew for all the mitzvot of the Jewish people.
But you're liable for whatever they rule of rulings.
Yes, but then that would extend to all the halachot that a Beit Din needs to, by that logic. He never accepted that. So that would be very difficult to understand why that would be the case.
He's on the same level as all the other guys. Like he's not killing.
If he was a full ger and you killed him, then he would be considered a Yisrael, because a full ger is a full Jew for everything.
That's why it says all, right?
We'll see. Okay. Says the Mishnah. Ha'av golei yidei ben. Says the Gemara. Ha'av golei yidei ben. The father could be going to galut for killing the son. Ve'ha'amrit, says the Gemara, yatzav Makkot beno. Didn't you say that we're excluding a case where a father's hitting his son, and over there, as we learned in the Mishnah, that was in order to be able to give him chinuch, and by mistake, chas shalom, the person passed away. Gemara answers, Digamir. No. It's talking about where the kid would have learned anyway without being hit. So therefore hitting him was not necessary. So therefore hitting him was not a mitzvah. So therefore the father going to galut for hitting his son. But you said in the Gemara just now that even if he would have learned anyway, there's still a mitzvah to do to be able to give him that discipline. The Gemara therefore says, what is it talking about? Bishuli denagri. No, it's not talking about that. It's not while he's teaching him Torah. It's talking about where he's there sitting, working together in the carpenter shop that he has, and while he's chopping the wood, something happens, as we said earlier, and it happens while he's teaching him that. Now, but it's not Torah, so therefore there's no mitzvah of discipline in that scenario, whether before doing wrong or after, right? So in that case, that's a regular act of murder, one Jew to another, with no exception of mitzvah. The Gemara asks,
Well, doesn't a father have an obligation to teach a profession to the child?
Yeah.
the Gemara says, Shula dinagri, chiyutahu delamde. You taught him, apprentice. You have a mitzvah to teach him a livelihood. The Gemara says, the Gameh umnata achriti. No, we're talking about that the kid he's already an accountant. Now you're teaching him woodworking. Right? He doesn't need the woodworking. So therefore, since he doesn't have a mitzvah anymore to teach him woodworking, therefore, Now, I always wondered about this. Who asked the Gemara to go through all these hoops? He wasn't teaching him anything. The Gemara's like, what do you mean? But he's teaching him. The Gemara says, oh no, it's not the Gemara. He's teaching him woodworking. What do you mean? But woodworking is a job. Oh, he's not teaching woodworking. He's teaching him another job.
Benefit to the doubt.
No, he's not teaching him anything. The father is going, skeet shooting, right? And something happens, he kills Has Shalom, the son. That's the case where the Mishnah is talking about. I don't know why the Gemara wanted to complicate matters, to have a question, to answer an answer, to ask a question on the answer, to come with another answer, to ask a question on that, and to come with a third answer. Hazaku Baruch.
I feel like it keeps the father in good light. No, he really wasn't doing anything wrong. He was doing this. No, he really wasn't doing this. He was doing that.
Yeah, but even if a father teaches...
No, but the whole thing is shogeg.
Right, but even so, it makes it look, he really was spending time with his son. He was learning with him. No, he wasn't learning. He was teaching him a job.
Wait a minute. Why can't it be that they went out to the forest to chop wood, exactly like the Pasuk says? So the Gemara is driving itself crazy for nothing.
What happens if a father teaches his son a trade and that trade collapses and it's over? He does not have the obligation to teach him another trade if that trade is done?
If it fails, then maybe yes. But here we're talking about where the kid learned the trade, so he's already fulfilled his mitzvah. So this is not teaching him chiyuta. This is not that obligation. So therefore, it's not. And remember, the point was not whether it was a mitzvah. The point was whether or not this was chayav. You obligated. Once I taught one trade, I'm not obligated to teach another trade. Okay? Says the Gemara, the Gemir umnata achriti. Let's see. The Gemara goes on to the next part of the Mishnah. Ben goleh av, the son goes into galut through the father. The Gemara asks, "V'raminu." 1 second. We have a contradiction. The Braita says, "Makeh nefesh prat lemakeh aviv." It says in the pasuk, "Makeh nefesh." Right? He hits a soul. Right? Illustrating that he's disconnected from the other person. That is, it's coming to exclude a case where a person hits his father. So the Braita had a very specific exclusion of makeh nefesh, and in that case, it's dafka, right? Someone who kills a random person, but not necessarily his father. So let's take a look at that pasuk, because it's important to look at that pasuk. Yeah, everyone see makeh nefesh? It's in the Pesukim. Lebnei Yisrael v'lager v'latoshav betocham, to the Jewish people, to the convert, to the one that lives amongst you. Tihiyena shesh sharim ha'ele, should be these 6 cities. Limiklat, to escape. Lanus shama, to run there. Kol makeh nefesh b'shgaga, anyone who hits a nefesh by accident. Okay, so the Gemara says. L'makeh nefesh b'shgaga, to someone. If you want a Gemara, there's more over here. Okay, someone who hits a nefesh b'shgaga. Yatza. What's the limud where it tells you that's excluding your father? Because here the punishment of death is not only makeh nefesh, as Nathan pointed out, it's even if you were to hit him, right? Even if you were to bruise him, you would have chiyuv mitah. So therefore, lemakeh nefesh bishkaga seems like that the punishment is only lemakeh nefesh, but not lemakeh, not if you just hit him and you gave him a wound or a bruise. Again, it's a very difficult limud to understand, remember, because it doesn't just say makeh nefesh b'shgaga, it says makeh nefesh, what's it called? B'shgaga, by accident. We don't have that same limud of wounding a parent by accident gets the death penalty. So how would you exclude it based on that? I'm assuming that the way the Braita made this limud is it's saying that when I have someone who's makeh nefesh, and they have the death penalty, right, for killing the person, that guy could escape to the Ir Miklat and be saved. But we're still talking about a person who, if he did it on purpose, would need to be saved from a death penalty. You understand the nekudah? Yeah? And that's not only in this case for killing, it's also the case for wounding. So therefore, the Braita held there was an exclusion of prat lemakavi. So the Gemara asks, how could you tell me that a son goes into galut for inadvertently, for by mistake killing his father? We have a Braita that specifically excludes it from the case. Rav Kana says, lo kasha, it's not difficult to understand. Rabbi Shimon, the Braita is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, and our Mishnah is not beholden to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. V'harabanan, our Mishnah holds like the Rabbanan. The Rabbi Shimon da'amar chenek chamur misayif. Okay, there's a machloket between Rabbi Shimon and the Chachamim. Their machloket on the surface level has nothing to do with this. What's their machloket? Rabbi Shimon and the Chachamim argue when it comes to a case of chenek versus saif, okay? So there's two different types of the arba mitot betin. In capital punishment, there are some capital punishment cases that the punishment is administered by chenek, which is where the person can't can't breathe. He's choked, if you will. The second case of beheading, a case of capital punishment in betin, when, however rare that is, as we explained already many times, he would get to that case. There would be an act of beheading. They would kill him in that way. Rabbi Shimon and the Chachamim argue over which one is more chamur. Okay, Rabbi Shimon da'amar chenek chamur misayif. Rabbi Shimon in that Braita, in that machloket holds that when a person they have the capital punishment of chenek, that is worse than saif. Okay, so
chenek is strangle.
Chenek is strangle, and saif is the beheading with the sword. So in a case where if the son would actually have murdered his father, that's the makeh nefesh. But if a son would have done that to his father, what would be the punishment? Chenek. And what if, as an example, he now did it by accident, right? Since in a scenario that if he would do it on purpose, he would get chenek. So it's not enough to give him galut because chenek is chamur misaif. And the case that we're talking about is saif, is a case of a beheading. So one more time. When the punishment on purpose is beheading, therefore we've talked about galut. So inadvertently you would get galut. But if Rabbi Shimon holds that chenek, which is the punishment for makeh aviv, for hitting your father, for causing that wound, right, is chenek, which is more chamur, you don't know that galut would be enough to get you kapara for when you did it inadvertently. So according to Rabbi Shimon, that's the exclusion of the father to the son. Shigigat saif nitena lekapara. Shigigat chenek lo nitena lekapara. Who told you that you could ever get a kapara for a inadvertent chenek punishment if chenek is more chamur, is more strict than saif? Rabbanan da'amar saif chamur, but the chachamim that hold that beheading is a more difficult, is a higher level punishment. So therefore, when the Torah told you that you get galut for a inadvertent saif, you would also get galut for an inadvertent chenek, for an inadvertent beheading. Shegat saif nitina lakapara. So therefore, by accident, you would also get it. So therefore, our Mishnah, which says that his son that inadvertently kills his father goes into galut, what's the reason? It's going according to the Chachamim, because the punishment, if he would have done it on purpose, would have been chenek, and you could learn out chenek from saif in the pasuk, because chenek is less than saif. The Gemara says another answer in the name of Rava.
Why is beheading worse?
I feel like it would be less because it's automatic. Strangulation, it's more painful, but at different times.
No.
I don't know. I would imagine that they both have their pluses and minuses.
It's like automatic when you get. I mean,
You know, they say,
no plus.
I wouldn't want either. Yeah.
Strangulation, because of that oxid, it will cause more suffering, more pain. But
Right, that would be worse.
You hit the windpipe, so immediately, instantly.
So he's saying there's a reason why chenek would be worse.
Oh, because you need to deserve it.
No, he's saying practically. He's a doctor. He's a
We
doctor.
think it's more suffering.
Skila is usually considered the highest form of punishment because the pain. You're constantly throwing stones at someone, so all the pain. You're going in agonizing pain, like in Mitzrayim, when you had the 3 levels of people who got their punishment in the water. Now,
In the water.
the most evil of the Egyptians were yanking around in the water, the Yam Suf, versus the ones that dropped dead like a lead.
So he's saying chenek is worse because it's more painful. That's what he's saying. The problem is that there's another opinion that says that saif is worse.
Which is what the ending.
So how could that be?
That's why. That's the same. That's what we want to know.
No, I think you were asking both ways.
Strangulation, we think is worse.
Beheading, I'd rather get, not me.
Right, it's a quick. The head gets cut off over. There's no suffering.
The answer is also though that it's much more. It's much.
Your body's
It's much more humiliating. It's a much. Yeah. So the guy also knows that this is what his end is going to be with his head rolling around afterwards. What? Like a chicken, yani.
To hear the mating, maybe it's a problem.
No, Techiyat HaMetim, it wouldn't necessarily be a problem. Literally. Why is it any worse than the complete decomposition in the earth where there's nothing left and Hashem brings it all back together? So, right, it's not like the problem. The issue is not that he's making only working bodies, reanimate. Yeah, okay. So maybe they're focusing one on the pain side and one on the embarrassing, the nivul.
But isn't there such a thing that when the body's not Israel, it moves under the ground? I don't know where it comes from. That's painful.
So you're worried about the rolling.
The body is getting bent. That's
I think the head is rolling easily now. It's a faster roll. I don't know why. I just imagined the bowling alley. Okay. Yeah. Sorry? 2 minutes. Let's go. Rava says, no. I don't want to have to make the Mishnah go only according to Rabbi Shimon, which is what the first answer the Gemara did in Rav Kana. Rava Amar, no. Prat lo se chabura be'aviv b'shogeg. The Braita before, okay, is what's the prat? What's the exclusion? What's the like makeh nefesh? What does it come to exclude? It's coming to exclude prat lo se chabura be'aviv b'shogeg, to exclude someone that makes a chabura in his father, not that kills his father. I would think even I would have thought that since if you did it on purpose, there's hayav mita for wounding your father, for causing a bruise on purpose. So I would have thought that if you caused the bruise by accident, then you go into galut, kamash malan. No, in the end we say no. So let's take a look. What's Rava doing? Rava says no. Instead of changing my Mishnah to fit the Braita, I'm going to change my understanding of the Braita. Let's go back for 1 second to the Braita. Makeh nefesh, prat lemakeh aviv. What is the Braita telling you? That if you were to strike your father, that's not counted. So you assume that meant strike your father and kill him. I'm going to say, Rava, no, the Havamina was saying prat to exclude someone who hits his father and the father doesn't die. Why would I think that that's the case? Because since when you wound your father, just the act of wounding your father is enough to, if you did it on purpose, get hayamita. So maybe you would have thought that accidental wounding of your father also gets galut. On that the Gemara, that the Braita was telling you, makeh nefesh, it has to be where you actually killed the person. Prat, to exclude a case where you would get mita even for not killing, even for wounding. Hakol golin, says the Mishnah, Hakol golim ayidei Israel, everyone gets galut if you would kill a Yisrael. Gemara says, "Hakol guli al yedei Israel li'ituye mai." Why would you? What is that coming to include? Gemara says, "Li'ituye eved v'kuti." That's coming to include that an eved and a kuti, someone who is a slave and have mitzvot like a woman, or a kuti, someone who is partial, they kept part of the mitzvot, that they also had galut for killing by accident. We're going to get into that in just a minute. I understand by an eved is chayav mitzvot, but what does a kuti mean? How could someone who's not part of the Jewish people, how could he be hayav in galut? And Israel will continue there from the Gemara on 8 before next time. Baruch Hanei Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.